So this module is going to be a little bit more technical, but it's also one of the most important modules, which is Pixel and CAPI, which stands for Conversions API. So why do we need to install the Pixel and Conversions API? Well, basically, this is the only way how Meta can see what happens on your website after they leave Facebook or Instagram. So once they leave Facebook or Instagram, Facebook cannot possibly follow the user onto your website. So it cannot optimize the campaigns, it cannot track how many purchases or significant conversions the user has made. So you don't really have information, and you cannot analyze the campaigns, you cannot optimize them, and you don't really know what to do because Facebook doesn't have information about them. So what you can do is to install a Pixel, which is basically the small piece of code into the header of your website. And by doing that, you allow Facebook to track the visitor on your website once it leaves Facebook. The problem with this is that in the last couple of years, there's a lot of shift on the cookies and cookie-less solutions online. So what it means is that a lot of browsers, or for example, devices like iOS for Apple, they don't allow the websites to track the users if they do not consent to be tracked. And that could be a default setting for a lot of Apple users actually. So in this case, even if you have Pixel installed on the website, if someone's using an Apple device, they will not be tracked. So no optimization, no tracking, and you are in the dark what to do. So in this case, to combat the situation, Meta released something that's called Conversions API. And in this case, how it works, it's basically not connected with any cookies. It's basically connected from server to server. And how it works is that once, for example, a purchase has been made on your website happens, select event is then processed and sent directly to Meta server without any tracking of the user and cookies. So you get this aggregated events of all the users that have been doing these certain actions on your website, and then the server of those websites is sending the information directly to Meta without disclosing the information of the specific user. So this might sound a little technical, and don't worry, it's actually quite easy to implement if you're using tools like WordPress or Shopify or Wix or any other popular website builder. If you have a custom website though, it's gonna get tricky, and in that case you would need to have a developer to help you install both Conversions API and Pixel, because it's not that easy if it's not used by these main platforms. So this is how it would look in practice. So first, the person visits your website, then the Pixel activates where the person clicks on a page on a site, and the Pixel registers this is a web event. And then the Conversions API sends that event directly from server to Meta with the event information. So with comprehensive data from both the Pixel and Conversions API, you can now integrate these insights into the ads. And in a best case scenario, you have both the Pixel and the Conversions API enabled, and then the Meta matches this information so it can verify if the conversion has actually happened. But if there is a huge discrepancy of what the Pixel says and what the Conversion API says, then you would need to run a diagnostics and probably have a help of a developer to understand why there's a mismatch and how you would be able to fix it. So now let's take a look at the standard events. So basically there are 17 different standard events that you can track with your Pixel or Conversions API. And what are standard events? It's basically the main conversions that you would possibly optimize your campaigns for if you would choose the conversion as your main goal, sales, for example. So in this case, let's take a look at the 7 most commonly used. And the first one is the purchase, especially if you're an e-commerce store owner or you're working for an e-commerce business. The purchase is #1 conversion that you should be optimizing the campaigns for. And this is probably the most important key metric to keep track of, because the more purchases you get, the more money your business generates and the more return on investment you can get. And the second one is initiate checkout. Basically, if you imagine this whole funnel thing that we discussed before, which goes like this: higher, lower, lowest. Then the purchase is at the very bottom of the funnel. So that's the most important event you should be tracking as an e-commerce store owner. But there are certain actions that happen before the purchase. So before they buy, they initiate checkout. Before they initiate checkout, they add info. Before they add payment info, they add to cart. And you can also track all of these conversions. And sometimes you can also optimize for them. But then you might ask, okay, but why would I optimize for add to cart if I need purchases? And you might be right. The trick here is that it's important to test, because Meta says that you need at least 50 conversions to be happening within a week for the campaign to optimize and get out of the learning phase. And sometimes if you have limited budget or you're just testing things out, you don't get nearly enough of conversions. So it's less than 50, campaign is not optimized, and you might not get the best results. So you can actually optimize then for events higher in the funnel, like initiate checkout or add to cart, because you will get more of those events for cheaper, because there are more people that are adding items to the cart than those to actually purchase. Maybe 30% or half of the users would purchase. So you would get at least 2 or 3 times more add to cart conversions, thus maybe having 50 conversions in a week, which then could lead to better campaign optimization. And then you can test one campaign with add to cart optimization and one campaign with purchase optimization, and just split test and see what works better. Then we also have some events that are not e-commerce related, and this is mostly for lead generation or event attendance, and then that is complete registration or lead. So for service-based businesses, lead is probably the most important event to keep track of, because that's the conversion that you want. You want more people to contact in order to warm them up, get to your sales team, or get into your lead nurturing pipeline on email list. So we can install Pixel in 5 simple steps. If your website is built on a platform like WooCommerce, Shopify, Wix, and similar. So first of all, navigate to the Events Manager and click on Connect a Data Source on the left. Then you click Web and select Get Started to continue. Then you should put Facebook Pixel and select Connect. And finally, you can add the name and URL of your website if you have one, and select Continue. And this is just for you to name it so you can find it later on. And in Facebook, naming is very important because you don't want to mess things up and you don't want them to get lost, especially if you are managing many businesses and you have many business managers with pixels and ad accounts underneath them. And finally, you can then use a partner integration and then you just follow the steps that Meta shows you in order to proceed. Or you can install the code manually if it's a very simple landing page. If there is no extra functionality, you're using it just for lead generation, you can install this code in the header of the website of your landing page, and it should be fine. And then you can use Event Setup tool to set up the events. But I suggest you better get the help of a developer in order for you to be sure that it's installed correctly.